Gunmen killed dozens of people in Mali's capital Bamako after taking hostages inside a luxury hotel. Coming just a week after the coordinated attacks in Paris, Mali faces an increasingly challenging security situation. So, how to stop these attacks? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. In Doha, I'm Adrian Finighan. Mali has been in political crisis since a 2012 military coup and a northern rebellion, which paved the way for a French and African Union military involvement to end the conflict. But the government has been unable to stop the many armed groups in the country, and one of them now says that it's responsible for the attack on a luxury hotel in the capital Bamako on Friday that killed at least 21 people. President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta has declared a 10-day state of emergency. Gunmen stormed the Radisson Blu hotel early in the morning and took at least 170 people hostage. After a 9-hour standoff with Malian and UN soldiers, most of the hostages were released, but some were killed. The armed group that's taken responsibility is known as Al-Murabitun, and it's linked to Al-Qaeda. We'll get to our discussion on what this all means for Mali and the region in just a moment. But first, Al Jazeera's Nicholas Huck has an update from Bamako.
Now, the security forces have cordoned off this hotel. We're expecting senior officials to visit the site of the attack, including the president of Mali, who's just announced a state of emergency. We don't know in practice what this means. He hasn't given any details. We do know, though, that there is going to be a curfew perhaps put in place, more patrol soldiers on the streets to try to secure Bamako and the vicinity around. Now, this is the most brazen attack Mali has experienced right at the heart of the capital in what is supposed to be the most secure area of Mali. Now, the question on everybody's lips is, how could this have happened? How could two gunmen have literally walked up to this hotel and taken so many people hostage? We do know that Al-Murabitun, a group, has claimed the attack through Twitter, which is very unusual. This group has claimed other attacks in Bamako, one back in March where they attacked a bar right here in the capital. Now, the investigation is going to continue, and in the hours and days to come, we'll have more information on where this takes us. But it's definitely a turning point for the people here in Mali and the government, who are hoping that this is a step towards more action, more involvement of the international community to try to secure a more stable Mali.
So let's bring in our guests for today's programme. From Paris, we're joined by Emmanuel Dupuy, as President of the European Institute for Prospective and Security. From Bamako, we're joined by Mamadou Tapily, Malian journalist who was outside the Radisson Blu on Friday. And also from Paris, Marie-Roger Biloa, senior editor of Africa International Media Group. Welcome to you all. Let's start with you, Mamadou, in Bamako. As we said, you were outside the Radisson Blu on Friday. Why do you think that hotel was chosen as a target? Why was there such a failure in security, given the fact that armed groups are still very much active in Mali?
I think it's been quite common since the invasions in Mali. Some different attacks, little attacks is happening all around the country. But coming back to your questions, when you ask about the Radisson, why this hotel has been attacked, of course, it's one of the biggest hotel in Bamako. It's a very well security staff there in this hotel, which made it more solicited by all the Western people to stay in this hotel. And then as we know, the jihadist people usually to attack, the Western people, referring to the attack which happened in the terrace in Hippodrome. That was a restaurant which is really solicited by most of the Western people, where they usually go to have a dinner and for the food. And that was the same thing which happened to that hotel too. Unless it's more secured, but they usually want to touch or to attack the place where the European people, where the Western people can really feel bad. than attacking the local people.
All right, Mamadou, you mentioned the attack earlier this year. 342 people have died in violence in Mali so far this year. How do Malians feel about what is happening right now in their country?
Malians actually think that it's quite a big panic for people. Most of the time when the Malian people think there's an attack and probably there will be a little hope of a security, a stabilization starts coming, you found that there is something happening. I mean by an attack. Most of the time, after 6 months, 8 months, something like that happened. So it stays a big panic in the Malian people's minds, you know. So
right.
We feel the insecurity in the country.
One more question, Mamadou. You talk about insecurity. I just wonder how much support within Mali, among ordinary people, do these armed groups enjoy?
Concerning the local people, if you see that, I think most of the Malian people think that it's really bad. Since all this trouble started in Mali, people really think that it's really bad for all the populations. The Malian populations are living in frightened every day and every night. They're living in a scare. They know that these people can attack wherever people never think that they're going to attack. So it's for Malian people, all the Malian people condemned very strongly this attack, you see.
Okay, let's bring in Emmanuel and Marie-Roger. Emmanuel, let's get something out of the way straight away. Was this attack in Bamako linked in any way to the attacks in Paris and Beirut, or was just the timing a coincidence?
Oh, I see no link at all for various reasons. First of all, the group which has advocated and has issued a communique saying that they were the responsible of the attack, Al-Mourabitoun, which is the follower of Moujah, who was created in 2013, is in no way linked to Daesh. By the way, one of the leaders of Al-Mourabitoun, who is a Sahrawi, who came from the Polisario Front, Al-Sahrawi, was pushed out of the movement last July, precisely because he wanted that the movement be affiliated to Daesh. So there's no link to Daesh, and as we know, Al-Mourabitoun has another name called Al-Qaeda in West Africa. That's one key figure. Second key figure is that the agenda is less international than local. There has been a certain number, as you rightfully mentioned, 342 people have died this year in Mali. 54 blue helmets have died this year in Mali, so there is ongoing violence throughout the territory, most of which in the north, but we do have certainty that the attacks are going southern-wise, a certain number of movements. I have one in particular in mind, and Sardine has revendicated and issued a strategy to forecast attacks in the south, near the Burkina Faso border, as well as the Ivory Coast border. So the violence is global. What is new is that it is going at a wider scale in Bamako. Your journalist rightfully mentioned that there was previous attacks against the restaurant La Terrasse in March. There was again attack this August, various very fierce attacks against a hotel, again one time in Sévaré. So I don't see an international agenda, I see a local agenda, and I will finish by saying that two movements, Ansardine issued a warning a month ago saying that one of his leaders has been arrested and they will not stay without answering that strategy. And of course, we do have in mind that one of the leaders of Al-Mourabitoun has been killed by the French forces a month ago, and Al-Mourabitoun was saying that he was going to respond to that. Maybe this attack is a clear and a direct response to this reality.
Marie-Roger, is that something that you'd agree with, given Mali's recent history, the precarious security situation in the country? Was an attack such as Friday's inevitable, just a matter of time, do you think?
It was, everybody was expecting attacks because, as everybody mentioned before, there have been ongoing attacks over the year, last year, this year, and many people have been killed. The link I will see with, and I also agree that is a domestic agenda, but there's a link one link between the Paris attacks and this one is France. I think the jihadists attacking the hotel Radisson knew they will be in confrontation with the international community and especially with France. Because whenever they have attacks, since France stopped the jihadists from taking over Bamako, the French troops have been around and they have been helping out whenever they could, you know, in several places at many times. And now what we could see, even if the special troops from Mali were doing the job, and this is new, they were really in the front line, they were backed by French troops coming from Burkina Faso, or even those who have been around too since, you know, you have 1,000 troops there. So France is always in the game, and if you want to confront them, you just need to target places where you have the international community, where you have French people coming, like the Radisson or the Terrace last a couple of months ago.
Marie-Roger, you talk about the common link between obviously the Paris attacks and the Mali attacks being France. Is France now fighting a two-front battle in its war on terror, with ISIL in Europe and Iraq and Syria, and with Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb in Mali?
Oh yes, definitely so. France has decided to be present in Africa where you have a lot of terrorism spreading out of, you have French troops, not French troops, you have French assistance dealing with Boko Haram, and you have the Operation Barkhane in Niger. Next door you have, and you have Serval in Mali. You have French troops in different places in Chad. Okay, so this has been a traditional place for France to sort of assist African countries in dealing with terror. And now ISIS is something which has happened, as we know, in the wake of the American intervention in Iraq, and since they have been killing people brutally and really challenging the West, challenging the whole world, and especially the West. You know, when you decide that one of the international or one of your political targets is to stop terror and sort of defend liberties. So the French feel they have to deal with ISIS too. So they are there along with other countries bombing, trying to stop them.
All right, let's just give a little background for the benefit of anyone watching. As we mentioned earlier, Mali has been in crisis now for the past few years. It began in late 2011 when armed ethnic Tuareg rebels tried to set up their own state in the north of the country. After a few months of fighting, Malian soldiers staged a coup in protest at what they said was the government's failure to end that northern rebellion. About a year later, France sent its troops to help the Malian government hold its capital. A peace deal with Tuareg rebels and the government was signed that summer, which led to elections. But two armed groups in the north joined ranks to form Al-Murabitoun, the group that says it carried out Friday's attacks. And after 2 years of fighting, another peace deal was signed this past June, which handed greater autonomy to separatists in northern Mali. But still, the attacks have continued. Emmanuel, the French intervention was touted as a great success. 23 days to win back a swathe of rebel-held territory. Is that still the view now? I mean, France has wound down the number of troops, although special forces remain in Mali, and yet we seem to see these armed groups now returning to cause chaos.
Well, the French operation lasted more than 23 days because the Serval operation, which started on January 20, 2013, ended officially in September 2014. So that's more than the counter-terrorist operation, which effectively led to prevent 600 of the coordinated rebel groups and jihadist groups to carry out their jihad throughout the territory of Mali. What is maybe important to have in mind is that France's appreciation of the situation has evolved throughout the evolution of the terrorist methodology. As you rightly mentioned, the terrorist groups benefited from a certain number of partnership, conjunctural partnership, pragmatical partnership with ancient, let's put it in a way, secular, traditional, hereditist rebel groups in the northern part of Mali. I will take one example, the national movement of the Tuaregs, but there are some more. What is quite new is the fact that France and its partnering countries, such as the United States, which still has a very harsh security agenda in the area, has understood that the movement is evolving throughout a transborder, multinational, very evolutive situation. But France has reconnected with the necessity to mentor the Malian army and give more emphasis to the growing of the international forces. 8,000 blue helmets are on the Malian territory, actually.
Okay.
Now,
Mamadou, I just wonder how people there in Mali feel about the French presence in their country. Do they have faith in the French troops that are on the ground there?
Yeah, I think with the French troops' presence in Mali here, I think people still think it's a kind of big help, even more than the UN presence here in Mali. So yesterday, from this attack of the Radisson attack, we have seen there were already Malian forces on the ground, there were UN forces on the ground, but with the arrival of the French forces has been changed all the mood of the places, where we even saw some snipers on the top of different buildings and rooms, which gives a big hope. And it's, so the presence, the French troops' presence in Mali, I think, is still a necessity for Malian people to have them still here.
Mamadou, what does Friday's attack mean for the Algiers peace accord signed last summer? The government signed with the rebel coalition in the north, the CMA.
Yes, with this attack, this Friday attacks means I can say. Because the Malian government has already got a peace signed with the rebels in the north, so which has been a sign of a hope of a stability and peace in the country. But still, after those peace signatures, we realize that there has been different few attacks in the country, in the center of Mali, like in the region of Mopti, in the Dogon country, close border to the Burkina Faso. All these attacks were revendicated by a jihadist leader called Amadou Koufa. So people were much more worried about him. And Malian people think that he wants to sign his mark saying that he also exists and he's fighting, for the jihad. So the reason why, so people think there's still, yeah.
All right, we're rapidly running out of time here. Marie-Rogier, do you think France will come to regret its initial intervention in Mali? Is it now going to have to be committed to having troops on the ground long-term, to having a long-term involvement with the situation in Mali?
Well, I don't think they regret it. They are very proud of it. And President Hollande, all these days when he had to give speeches on the situation on the Paris attacks at UNESCO or in Versailles, he stressed that France has always been in the forefront in fighting against jihadism, against terror. And he always mentioned the example of Mali. They are very proud of it because it was a success. What if they hadn't done it? You would have jihadists in the same situation than the ISIS, with a territory, with resources, and running a country. So this did not happen, and I don't think France regrets it. They even want to extend the means they provide to African countries to sort of fight all this terror. And it is part of the mission they have assigned to themselves, because they know that terror is international, and if you don't stop terror in Africa, it will hit Europe, it will hit everybody. So it's a global, it's a common fight and a global mission for everyone.
All right. Emmanuel, do you fear insecurity and violence continue to spread in Mali, at least for the foreseeable future, or can it be brought to a swift halt?
Well, it would definitely be a perspective and a challenge for the Malian government and the regional states by all means. As we know, yesterday, President Ibeka came back from Chad, where there was a G5 meeting, and calling for concrete and very pragmatical and rapid results. President Déby said that yesterday was a milestone obligating the 5 member states, Mali, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, Chad and Niger, to have one immediate response. And that immediate response is to have more military cooperation. As we know, the Malian army, 24,000 troops, are mentored by the European Union, and there should be also mentoring for the other 4 military army of the 5 countries that I mentioned. There should be also the creation of a task force, a rapid intervention force. This is an old idea which was discussed in various arenas, one of which is African Union, and it led to a concrete result with a multinational task force to fight against Boko Haram. So now we are waiting for this result to have an international force, again, confirming the fact that France will be there for a long time, but not only in Mali, and therefore there should be a burden sharing on that agenda as well.
Mamadou, just one final question. What security changes do you think we're likely to see now following Friday's attack in Bamako?
Yeah, after this Friday attack, the President Ibeka, the President of Mali, Ibeka, has decreed a commitment meeting. So with all the ministers, they have decreed a mourning for 3 days and 10 days of emergency state. It's fine. Always this shows how Malian people can be feeling much more insecurity. But always that's happened. But since it keeps on going, and after a while, it took like 2-3 months, when people start feeling being insecurity, something happened. So I think it's not a fighting for 1 day or 2. It's a fighting which will take a long time. So, as I was saying, concerning the security, the presence of the French people, the UN forces, all these are still staying important in the country to give people much more, feeling much better in the security situation.
And Marie-Roger, I know you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, I wanted to say that beside all the security measures, they have to deal with the causes of all this. The peace accords were not supported by all, but all the time. But despite that, they have to be respected, and it's not happening. There were promises in the accords, like more autonomy for the Tuareg and elections for representative. All that is not coming because maybe Bamako feels they gave too much. They yielded too much to the rebels. So there is a situation there where we speak too much about the military measures and the security measures, but there is a political part, a political aspect which they have to deal with.
All right, Marie-Roger, I'm going to have to
come to terms with the terror there.
I'm going to have to stop you there, Marie-Roger. We're out of time. Thank you to all of you in Paris, Emmanuel Dupuy, in Bamako, Mamadou Tapily, and also in Paris, Marie-Roger Biloa. And thank you for watching. As always, don't forget you can leave your comments on the programme's page at our website, aljazeera.com, or you could post your views at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or tweet us at AJ Inside Story. Thanks for watching. From me, Adrian Finighan, and all of the team here in Doha. We'll see you again. Bye for now.